Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling something uh, fundamental but, surprisingly common in cybersecurity.
Right.
We've been looking at this YouTube video, and it just lays bare exactly how easily an MQTT server got breached.
Yeah, it's pretty stark.
And not through some, cutting-edge exploit, but just using passwords you might find.
Yeah.
Well, just about anywhere.
Exactly. Common stuff.
So our mission for this deep dive is to kind of strip away the technical jargon in that video, walk through the core steps they showed, figure out precisely why it worked.
Right. The why is key.
And most importantly, pull out that big, flashing cybersecurity lesson that, you absolutely need to know. We've got the source. Let's get to it.
And the critical thing here, right from the jump, is this isn't about some fancy hack. It's really a perfect demonstration of a security misconfiguration.
Misconfiguration? Okay.
Think of it like leaving the back door wide open. This ties directly into things like, the A5 category and the OWASP Top 10. Basic setup flaws creating massive vulnerabilities.
Got it. So let's talk about that open back door. The credentials. We hear default credentials or weak passwords a lot.
Right.
For someone who knows the space but might not be thinking about this specific type of vulnerability, what exactly are we talking about here? It's more nuanced than just password 123, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, password 123 is like the poster child for bad passwords.
Sure.
The real danger highlighted in this video comes from credentials, even ones that seem random, maybe, that are included in these widely available lists.
Like lists attackers use.
Exactly. Attackers compile these massive word lists or credential lists. They get them from past breaches, common user habits, default settings. I mean, everything they can get their hands on.
Okay.
So using a password that exists in one of those lists, no matter how unique you think it is, well, that's a security misconfiguration. That's the A5 flaw. It makes your system instantly vulnerable to automated attacks that just cycle through millions of these known combinations. It's not really guessing. It's more like checking a huge database of already known bad passwords.
Wow. So it's like if you used your pet's name from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that pet's name happened to be on some list of 1 million common pet names compiled from, I don't know, Instagram profiles or something.
Precisely. Suddenly it's not unique anymore.
And these lists are huge, you said.
Oh, they're vast and growing.
Okay, so in the video, the first step after they identified the target domain was figuring out where that target actually lived.
Right.
And what services were exposed.
Finding the IP, seeing what's open.
They used Nmap for scanning. For listeners familiar with scanning tools, what was the key output they were looking for that just screamed potential MQTT server?
Right. So they started with the domain, used Nmap to get the IP, did a full port scan, the NOSH-P option.
Okay.
And what jumped out immediately from that scan were two specific ports often associated with MQTT. They saw port 1883 wide open.
1883.
Identified as the standard insecure MQTT port. And they also saw port 8883, which is typically for the secure encrypted version.
Oh, okay. So secure and insecure options.
Exactly. But the fact that 1883 was open and accessible, that's the second big red flag, right after the potential for weak credentials.
Why is that such a red flag, the insecure port?
It means any traffic, including login attempts, passwords, the messages themselves, it's all sent unencrypted, plain text.
Ooh, not good.
Not good at all. And that's where the video focused, obviously.
Yeah.
Targeting that insecure service.
Okay, and just to quickly level set on MQTT itself, based on the source material, it's this lightweight messaging protocol.
Yeah, very lightweight, efficient.
The source describes it using a publish-subscribe model. What's the quick takeaway on why that publish-subscribe thing is relevant when someone actually gets access?
Okay, so think of it like a central message board or a hub.
Right.
Devices or applications, they publish data, could be sensor readings, commands, status updates, whatever, to named channels called topics on this hub. Then other devices or applications, they subscribe to the topics they care about. And they automatically receive any messages published to those topics.
Okay, so it pushes messages out.
Exactly. The relevance is, once you're authenticated and connected, you can potentially subscribe to topics and see messages that were intended for other subscribers.
Okay, so you're basically joining the conversation.
Sure.
Or maybe just eavesdropping on it once you're in.
Exactly. If you have the right credentials, that is.
Which brings us neatly to the next part of the video, gaining access.
Yep, the break-in.
They brought out Metasploit. Many listeners will know that, one, it's a major penetration testing framework.
Huge tool, yeah.
What specific part of Metasploit did they actually leverage here? And how did it interact with those bad credentials you mentioned earlier.
Right, so they didn't use an exploit module, like something looking for a software bug. They used what's called an auxiliary scanner module within Metasploit.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, specifically the MQTT Connect module. Its purpose is actually pretty simple, but powerful in this context. It automates the process of trying to connect to the MQTT server using lists of usernames and passwords. It's essentially a highly efficient brute force tool, but focused specifically on that MQTT login mechanism.
Okay, so the video shows them setting this up. They point the module to the target IP address and the insecure port 1883.
Yep.
And then the crucial part, they tell it where to find the username list and the password list. These are those massive word lists we talked about.
Precisely. They loaded up those lists, hoping to find a match against whatever credentials the server was actually configured to accept.
And there was another setting. Stop on success.
Yeah, that's important. It just tells Metasploit, hey, the minute you find one working username-password pair, stop, we're done, we found a way in. Saves time.
Wild. So they just, press go, and the tool starts hammering the server, trying combination after combination from those lists.
That's exactly right. It just automates all that grunt work, trying every username from the user list against every password in the password list, or however the module logic works, combination after combination.
And the outcome shown in the video, I mean, it wasn't like it took days or weeks, was it? It seemed pretty quick.
No, the video demonstrates it finding a working pair relatively quickly. The script successfully identified the username operator and the password Catalina.
Operator and Catalina. Just digest that for a second, you listening. This wasn't some zero-day exploit.
Nope.
It wasn't breaking encryption, wasn't some advanced network trickery.
Not at all.
It was simply using a tool to try common words and phrases from a readily available list until operator and Catalina popped up as a match.
Exactly that password Catalina. It likely appeared in the password list because it's a relatively common string, maybe linked to certain default configurations, maybe just frequently used by people, who knows?
Right.
But finding it means the security was entirely dependent on credentials that were just not strong enough to withstand a basic dictionary attack using public lists. That's the misconfiguration, plain and simple.
Okay, so they're in. They've got operator and Catalina. What happens next? The video shows them using another tool, Mosquito Sub.
That's right. Mosquito Sub.
What's that tool doing?
Mosquito Sub is basically a standard command line client for talking to MQTT servers.
Okay.
It lets you connect and, crucially, subscribe to topics. So in the video, they used it to connect to the server's IP, port 1883 again.
Using the credentials they just found.
Exactly. Providing the operator username and the Catalina password they just found with Metasploit.
And you mentioned something critical they did there. A flag.
Yes. Critically, they used the nest tag flag.
Not hashtag. What does that hash symbol signify in the MQTT world?
The hashtag symbol is a wildcard in MQTT topics. It's a multi-level wildcard. Using hashtag basically means subscribe to every single topic on this server.
Whoa, every topic?
Every single one. It's essentially saying, show me all the messages being published. I don't care what topic they're under.
So it's not like they had to guess specific topic names beforehand. They just said, give me everything.
Precisely. If the server allows authenticated users, even ones who got in with weak credentials to subscribe to wildcards like hashtag, they get immediate broad visibility into all the data flows on that server.
Okay. And the video shows the result of running that command with the cracked credentials. What starts appearing on the screen then?
Messages. They immediately start streaming out onto the console.
Like what?
Well, the video shows specific messages like unsecure IoT traffic and why not to use default.
Okay. Flags for the lab.
Exactly. Those were likely just placed there as flags or indicators in the lab environment to prove they got access successfully.
Sure.
But the point is, with those weak credentials and that hashtag wildcard subscription, the attacker gains instant access to whatever information is being published. Could be sensor data in an industrial setting, status updates in an IoT deployment, commands, anything.
So pulling this all back.
Yeah.
Back to the source of the problem.
Yeah.
It really does just come down to those passwords, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It wasn't the ports being open necessarily, or Metasploit existing, or MQTT itself being flawed.
No, the vulnerability wasn't some complex flaw in the software or the protocol. It was entirely 100% dependent on the credentials chosen for that operator user. The video transcript even dives a bit into the contents of the password list they used.
Right. What kind of examples did they mention from that list? Just to give a flavor.
They specifically called out examples like SpongeBob, Alejandra, Hello Kitty, and I love you too.
Slight chuckle. Seriously, okay.
And even seemingly non-obvious ones were likely in there. Things like keyboard sequences, QWERTY patterns, brute forcers often include those too.
Right, right.
And the reason passwords like Catalina or SpongeBob or I Love You Too make systems vulnerable isn't because they are inherently easy for a human to guess, maybe, but because they are common enough to appear in these vast, readily available lists that automated tools like that Metasploit module use. That is the core of the security misconfiguration.
It's just a numbers game then. And the defender loses if they happen to pick a password that's already part of the attacker's known universe of bad passwords.
Exactly. And like I said, these lists are getting bigger and bigger all the time thanks to data breaches and just general data collection. It's a constant battle.
So the whole chain of events we saw, finding the open insecure port, using a standard tool like Metasploit with a simple scanner module, pointing it at massive lists of known bad passwords, and then using a basic client like Mosquito Sub with a wildcard to just see everything.
Yeah.
It all hinged on that single point of failure.
Correct.
The password being guessable from a list.
That's the clear takeaway here. A basic security misconfiguration, just using credentials that are easily brute forced from common lists, made a standard service on an open port completely accessible, with minimal effort, really, just automated tools and existing data. It's a classic example of why fundamental security hygiene, like using strong, unique passwords that are not found in word lists, is so incredibly critical, even for back-end services you might not think about often.
And that really leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? Building directly on what we saw in that video. If an attack this straightforward, relying purely on passwords pulled from common lists, can unlock access to a server like that, what does that tell you about the potential strength or maybe the weakness of the passwords you might be using right now? On other devices, other services, other accounts. Assuming, of course, they aren't protected by stronger factors. Something to think about.